Election night 2016 is officially here. Hello, everyone. I'm Megyn Kelly.
And I'm Bret Baier. The first presidential candidate made his announcement 596 days ago. Remember that? Senator Ted Cruz? But it's all come down to Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton.
You can feel the excitement in the air. The voting booths were stocked full of people today, lines wrapping around neighborhoods, east to west, north to south. And finally, the verdict is in. The voters decided today. We'll be back at the top of the hour for full coverage. But first, I want to go outside of our beautiful new studios to our friends at The Five. Take it away, guys.
Hey, guys.
Well, thank you, Bret and Megyn. Hello, everyone. I'm Eric Bolling, along with Kimberly Guilfoyle, Juan Williams, Dana Perino, and Greg Gutfeld. It's 5 o'clock in New York City, Election Day in America, and this is The Five. We are live outside Americans' election headquarters, where results will soon be pouring in as the polls close across the country. As Bret mentioned, 596 days since Ted Cruz kicked off election 2016. 22 candidates, now down to 2. 62 million primary votes cast. $1.3 billion spent, and hundreds of hours of disagreement and debate on this show alone, all in the books. And now, we are just a few hours away from finding out whether an establishment Democrat with a strong ground game or a political outsider with an uncanny ability to use the media will be the 45th president of the United States of America. Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump cast their votes today after a bitter general election battle. They'll be spending election night less than 2 miles away from one another right here in Manhattan. Along with the White House, control of the Senate is also up for grabs. It's going to be an interesting night, to say the least, Miss Guilfoyle.
Yes.
How do you make the race so far? What are you thinking? By the way, congratulations, everybody. 596 days, and we're still together here.
A long journey indeed. I think it's very exciting. You can tell by the crowd out here tonight. People can feel it in the air. We've got both of the people contending to be president of the United States right here in Manhattan and New York City. They both have worked very hard in a long, tough battle to be able to get into these positions. And here's the exciting part, that we live in this democracy. It's a close race. It's tight by all the polls that are being considered. So it really is one to watch to see how this is going to turn out. Will it be historic with a woman as the first president of the United States, or will it be the outsider who said he's going to drain the swamp in D.C. and take back government for the people? Pretty exciting.
Dana, in a couple of minutes, we're going to get some exit polls. We're going to go inside as soon as we have them compiled. Your thoughts? What do you think we're going to hear in a couple of minutes?
Well, I want to find out if the exit polls from the primaries end up being what you hear tonight in the general. One of the things that was notable in the exit polls for the Republican primary is that people really want somebody who would tell it like it is. They got that. They also said that it wasn't that important to them that it could be somebody who could win in November. They may get that too. Or they might not, because Hillary Clinton was considered to be somebody that people were like unenthusiastic about in the Democratic primary, because a lot of the enthusiasm was with Bernie Sanders. And I think Donald Trump has this amazing enthusiasm behind him across the country. But can that overtake her organization? That's going to be what we have to find out in the next 5 hours.
Juan, I said it was an establishment Democrat with a strong ground game versus an outsider with the uncanny ability to work the media. Who wins in that?
Well, I think ground game wins, because it's just like you can have big rallies, you can have a lot of TV ratings, but the question is, do you have people who go to the polls? And today, what we know is 130 million people, 130 million, astounding. So this will set all records for voter turnout in the USA. And what you get is a huge change in who is turning out, huge increases, especially among Latino voters right now, the focus of so much attention from the political analysts.
All right, what do you say, Greg? How do you assess it so far?
My favorite part of today was when they asked Hillary Clinton what it was like to vote for herself. And she said, "I felt humbled." Feeling humbled for voting for yourself might be the greatest contradiction I've ever heard. That's like saying, you know, I feel selfless when I still steal those pills from grandma, or I feel brave when I run from a butterfly. That's why I love her.
Obviously, guys, Florida's going to be super important, and also North Carolina. And the interesting part about that is that's the Eastern time zone. One other hour, I guess, the panhandle of Florida is the next hour. However, very two important states could we could be calling it early if Trump doesn't lock those two down.
Maybe, but he does have a path to 270, and one of the states to watch is Pennsylvania, and of course then New Hampshire. We'll get those results, and if it's really, really close, you need to look up into Maine, where they split their vote, and he could actually pick one of those up there.
On CD2, yeah.
Yeah, I have an idea. See, my state doesn't matter. New York City, it's like if I vote, it's like adding a grain of sand to the Gobi Desert. It's going to go Hillary no matter what. I think they should change the rules so that if you get the popular vote, you get the VP. So if Hillary, let's say Hillary wins, but Trump gets the popular vote, he gets to be VP. Trump is VP.
That's what they
and
do
the
in Europe.
reverse. I love that idea. Why can't we do that?
Yeah, because it would be explosive, Gregory. I mean,
Yes.
it's not like we haven't had a divisive enough election.
It would
you
be
you want it to be
unification.
institutionalized.
It would be a unification.
This is another example of Greg thinking way outside his little box. I like it. I like it.
Why does it have to be little?
Well, there is a very, very, robust debate whether we should get back to the rather, leave the Electoral College and go back to the popular vote.
But it's in the Constitution,
I
Eric.
understand that, and there are methods to change the laws via constitutionally via ways of changing.
There are, and that's why it's very interesting to see. So, Greg, I'm going to disagree with you and say that you should get out there to vote, regardless of whether your state is historically gone blue or red. You want to see people, everybody's vote should count, and then you see the comparison. I think it's worth it to be able to see who wins popular, who wins the Electoral College vote. But more importantly, what we saw, people talked about this being a divisive or negative election, tough fought battle. You know what I saw? I saw people engaged and passionate on both sides. I think that is important, and perhaps we've gotten more people to register, to get out there to vote, to exercise their civic duty here, which I think is important. There's so many people across the world that would kill to have the right to vote and determine who their leaders are going to be.
Well, just let me quickly add there that part of that is women. I mean, tonight is a big deal for women, and women are a larger percentage of the electorate tonight than they were back in 2012. It means that up to now, more than 54%.
Let me cut you off, Juan, because we want to go right now to Martha MacCallum. She's live inside America's election headquarters with the very first exit polls hot off the press. Martha, what do you see?
Hi there, Eric. We are just getting the first information out of these early exit polls. Lots more information will come in later as these numbers continue to update. But the first two are quite interesting because they go to the news-oriented issues that people have had to deal with out there. Hillary Clinton's emails and the FBI investigation, big news in the final days of this race. So did it matter to voters? It did. 6 in 10 say that the Clinton email issue bothered them, according to the numbers that we're getting. How about Donald Trump and his treatment of women? Clearly troublesome to voters as well. In fact, more so, 71% saying that his treatment of women bothered them and was a factor. So take a look at this. In terms of whether or not people were voting against someone, because we've seen the long lines wrapped around buildings out there, and what's driving the voter, more than twice as many folks today say they are voting because they dislike the other candidate than felt that way back in 2012. It's up 10%. So the number strongly favors their choice is down more than 20 points. Take a look at those numbers for just a moment here. Best describes my vote for the candidate. Strongly favor 41%. Have reservations 32%. Dislike the others 25%, and that is higher than what we saw in 2012. Let's take a look at the commander-in-chief number. Obviously an important factor for everybody as they go to place their vote today. Clinton winning on that by 3%, 49 to 46 over Donald Trump. The economy has always been a strong one for Donald Trump throughout the course of this race. He beats her on that one, 48 to 46. But here's one more interesting tidbit that we have in. Gary Johnson is getting almost 3 times as much support among the late deciders. So you had both of these candidates all across the country trying to pull in those last-minute folks. And it turns out that many of them decided to go for Gary Johnson in the final moments of walking in there and placing their vote. So we're getting a lot of numbers in here. You've got 1,000 places across the country where people are having these questionnaires placed in front of them. About 45% say, yeah, I'll answer the questions. So that's what we're going through right now. We'll have a lot more coming up at the top of the hour. Back to you guys.
All right, thank you, Martha. We are going to have a lot more on this, more to come on this special Election Day edition of The Five. Coming up next, Bill Hemmer's at the data deck with states to keep a close eye on tonight. Stay tuned.
Welcome back to The Five. We are live outside America's election headquarters on this decision day in America. 270, that's the magic number. Bill Hemmer joins us now from the data deck with some possible scenarios on how things could shake out tonight. How's it looking, Bill?
Dana, good evening to you. Here's what I want viewers to learn from this. It's sort of a guide to the first couple of hours for our coverage later this evening, okay? The poll closings 1 hour and 45 minutes from now. At 7 o'clock Eastern time, we're getting a polls closing in Virginia, 13 electoral votes. Also, the state of Georgia, Indiana closes at 7 o'clock as well. And you got a good governor's race there, a good Senate race too there in Indiana. At 7:30 East Coast time, so 2 hours and 15 minutes from now, you get two big ones. That's Ohio at 18 electoral votes and North Carolina at 15 electoral votes. And we'll see which way this goes and whether or not it's something. In all likelihood, this is not a state, either state, that we'll be able to call around 7:30. So we'll watch the returns as they come in. 8 o'clock, here is your map, Dana. 8 o'clock on the East Coast. New Hampshire, 4 electoral votes. Pennsylvania at 20. And down here, bottom right, Florida at 29 electoral votes. That is a big, big prize as you look at the map tonight. 8:30 is Arkansas, and then 9 o'clock we all light up across the country here, especially upper Midwest, Michigan, Wisconsin, Minnesota. Are they really in play this year? We'll start to get an indication around that time, 8 o'clock Eastern time. The map is blank for the moment, but you're gonna see this thing filling throughout the night, red and blue, and as we start to tally things up from now. One thing we have not talked a lot about, given the state of the race on the presidential side, that's the balance of power in Congress. And the Senate is really something to watch throughout the night. Right now, Republicans go in with a 54-46 lead. Among those Democrats, you have two independents who caucus with them. So we're going to watch this, and that could go very late when you consider this race we've been watching in the state of Nevada. With Joe Heck on the Republican side, we'll see whether or not he can do something in Nevada that he has been gunning for some time, and that is take the seat of Harry Reid. That could be a very late decider tonight. Back outside to you guys, and we'll be back in the data deck in about an hour's time.
All right, thank you so much, Bill. So I was thinking, Eric, about how I'm not a native of New York, right? Born in Wyoming, but this is the city that never sleeps. And tonight, I think this is actually quite unusual. You have both candidates, presidential candidates, within 2 miles of each other. I'm not sure what traffic's going to be like later. It'll probably be pretty bad. But can you imagine the excitement, the tension, the concern, the joy, like they're holding back their exuberance at both campaigns tonight?
Yeah, it's less than 2 miles apart, right up the street, a couple of blocks. The Trump Victory Party is headed right over there. A whole bunch of people in Times Square going, should I go that way or should I go that way? But Hemmer's right. So Florida, very important. Obviously, the East Coast, North Carolina. If Trump locks those two down, then you have to look at the next level. You have to look at either Michigan in the Midwest. Obviously, Ohio is important, but Michigan. If he doesn't get Michigan, then you have to look back up in New Hampshire. Did he get New Hampshire? Because if he didn't get New Hampshire, then he's going to have to do something in Colorado. He has to have Nevada, and it gets a little crazy out west for him there. So we'll know what path he needs to take probably within an hour of the polls closing on the East Coast.
Kimberly, any thoughts about the big parties tonight? Like, you know New York.
I do know New York. Everyone's been asking me, believe me. Look, obviously people are going to be excited to go and support their candidate. There was supposed to be fireworks for Hillary Clinton, but apparently that was dialed back. They made some permits or some requests with the U.S. Coast Guard. But I think no matter what, I mean, the point is we're going to have this celebration tonight regardless. There are going to be people that are going to be upset because their candidate didn't win, but there's still their voice was heard, and I'm sure there'll be some private parties for people depending on their candidate, and also some people crying inside and out.
Juan, did you get any sense today of how the Hillary Clinton campaign was feeling going into this afternoon?
Well, for both campaigns, we're trying to focus on the positive. So you heard the Clinton campaign talking about the high turnout among Latinos, and something that we saw a little bit of in terms of what Martha was talking about, that voters were coming out, especially women, and they anticipate those are going to be their voters. As Martha's numbers showed from the big board, a tremendous point of concern, Trump's treatment of women. The emails also a big point of concern for Trump supporters, but not up to the 70% level that you saw for people concerned about Trump. I was interested to see that both candidates split just about evenly on commander-in-chief and the economy. So, and immigration, you know, we talk so much about immigration given Donald Trump's talk about the wall from the very start of the time he came down that escalator in Trump Tower. But it's not a big issue for the voters tonight.
What do you think, Greg, if you were going to go out and party tonight?
Party?
Would you party tonight, or would you how do you like to watch the results?
Well, first of all,
I'm assuming you want to do it quietly.
Man or woman over the age of 21 should use party as a verb.
Okay.
It is a noun. You say you're going out and have an entertaining time. Let's talk about the fireworks, shall we? It's a difficult question because if you get the fireworks, right, and you lose, you look stupid. If you don't get the fireworks and you win, you look stupid.
You look like a jerk.
So the solution is an ice cream cake.
Oh my God.
If you lose, you could eat the ice cream cake. If you win, you could drop it from a building. Because it's pretty awesome when you see an ice cream cake hit the floor.
Don't encourage that, Greg.
You know, it's better. Del Frisco's lemon cake would be better than the ice
Yes, I
cream
know.
cake.
But you would never want to drop that.
Famous from
There's probably
Kimberly's
1,000
food
people
court.
in there trying to figure out where to go, too. By the way, on cue, a Trump...
It probably is on cue.
With Drain the Swamp Side.
Drain the Swamp Side.
Your friends are here.
right.
A Trump Congo line.
All right, we're going to get back to you in just a moment. What are the nominees doing as they wait for their results to stream in? We're going to check in with our reporters covering both campaigns straight ahead. Keep it right here on The 5 on this Election Day 2016. We're back in a moment.
Welcome back. 17 months ago, Donald Trump announced his presidential bid at Trump Tower right here in Midtown Manhattan. Tonight, he will close out his campaign a few blocks away at the Hilton Hotel. Campaign Carl is there now and joins us. Hi, Carl.
Hi, Kimberly. Trump aides described themselves earlier today as cautiously, hopefully, nervously optimistic. And they're looking at a number of key states, obviously. Florida is fundamentally the most important. They recognize that there's some good turnout, it appears, on the Interstate 4, I-4, a corridor of a heavily, heavily populated part of Florida that can often swing how Florida goes. But the Clinton campaign has a particularly strong base of support in an organization in South Florida, Miami area. And the question really becomes whether or not the Trump campaign, with its last-minute dash to some Democratic states that have voted for Obama in the last couple of cycles, will pay off, and whether or not working-class whites come out in big numbers to match what is expected to be a pretty hefty turnout for Clinton's campaign with African Americans and Latino voters. This morning, Trump voted here in New York and was asked whether or not he would concede if, in fact, he is defeated, and he said he's going to wait and see. At one point today, the Trump campaign actually registered a lawsuit in Las Vegas against the keeping open of the polling places for early voting on Friday night. When it came time to close the polls, there was a long line, and the Trump campaign is alleging that they didn't cut off the line at the appropriate time, and people who voted, in some cases, should not have. So there's now litigation in the mix here. Trump has said in the past that he wouldn't say whether or not he was going to accept the results, particularly in the debate with Chris Wallace. So the Trump campaign is looking for a big win, particularly in Michigan and Pennsylvania. Flip those two states, and he's in great shape. Florida and North Carolina, where everybody's watching right now. Kimberly?
All right, Carl, we're going to take it straight down the line here. Go ahead, Juan, your question.
Hey, Carl, is there any requirement that the candidate concede?
No, none whatsoever. But it helps to unify the country in the wake of what has been one of the most combative presidential elections we've seen. The exit polls have made it pretty clear that the one thing people are really happy about is that it's finally going to be over.
Exactly. Bowling.
Carl, in the last couple of days, Donald Trump made a couple of visits he went to Virginia, he also went to Wisconsin. What was the theory? What's the idea behind those visits? Is there a thought that one of these, the pollsters have misread these states completely?
No. They saw that there was movement in the polls and that Trump was growing momentum in those states. They were sort of on the B list. His top four to win were Florida, Ohio, Pennsylvania, and North Carolina. If he were to flip the blue states and keep the red states in that configuration and match what Mitt Romney did in 2012, he could win the presidency. Pennsylvania's been tough. Florida has been tied all along. North Carolina's a dogfight. And Ohio seems to have been tilted a little bit towards Trump for the last couple of weeks, but always within the margin of error. So they were looking for backstop states, and Michigan, Minnesota, and Wisconsin is where they chose because they saw in polling data that part of this country was tightening.
All right, Dana.
Carl, we've made a lot of comments over the past several months about organization and whether the Trump campaign had enough of it. My sense is that the Republican National Committee is not getting enough credit for some of the work that it's done over the last 4 years, no matter who the nominee was going to be, and that is possibly paying off in some states, like even my home state of Colorado.
Yeah, the Republican National Committee has put together a pretty impressive ground organization across the country, and that's what Trump is relying on. Trump doesn't really have a separate campaign organization. He's piggybacking off of the RNC. The RNC has an obligation to work for down-ballot candidates as well, and there's some evidence to suggest that the Republican Senate races that have been in big trouble, some of them will probably lose, but perhaps the Senate will stay in Republican hands now, which is, a major relief for Republicans if that were to come to pass. And there was some evidence in the polls in the last few days that might be underway. But the RNC has done a good job. They've really beefed up their big data and social media presence. It may not rival Hillary Clinton's per se, but it's far, far superior to what it was in 2012 when they had a lot of problems. So far, we haven't heard about those types of problems. There have been some complaints about voting booths and voting machines not working, but it's this kind of sporadic stuff that's fairly normal.
Okay, Greg has a question for you. Brace yourself, Carl.
Carl, great to see you. I love the Hilton. Be sure to check out the third floor ice machine. I left you a little surprise. I have a question about everybody keeps talking about how this election has a lot of negativity and divisiveness. But the real divisiveness is within the party. At least that's how I see it. It's not between parties. It's within the party. How has that affected among Republicans? How has that affected Trump's chances?
Well, great question.
Thank
and
you.
It's true of both parties. The liberals in the Democratic Party, the Bernie Sanders types, were very aggressively opposed to Hillary Clinton, and it was necessary for them to unite that part of the party. And it appears that the Clinton campaign is in the realm of what is necessary to win. For Republicans, that's really about 94% of Republicans have to come home, and Trump's definitely on track to have done that, given the polling and what we've been seeing on the road in the last couple of weeks. So that keeps the Republicans and the Democrats, in the partisan sense of it, pretty even with them. What happens in the general election is reaching out to moderate, independent, and swing voters, undecideds, and disaffected voters from the other side. Trump made efforts to do that, but it's too early to really know where that's going to happen. There was a lot of talk about this was going to be a depressed, suppressed electorate, and we'd have low turnout. In a lot of places, they're talking about long lines and big turnout.
All right, thanks, Carl. Go check the ice machine. And next, we're going to check in with Jennifer Griffin. She is live at Clinton's election night headquarters. We'll be back in a moment. Stay with us.
Welcome back. There have been 44 U.S. presidents since our nation was founded, all of them men. Will number 45 be a woman? We go now to Fox's Jennifer Griffin live at the Jacob Javits Center here in New York, a facility. By the way, it has a very large glass ceiling. Hillary Clinton hopes to figuratively crack that ceiling tonight. Jennifer.
Hi, Juan. Well, campaign officials who I've spoken to tonight feel very confident, but the candidate herself is extremely superstitious, I'm told. She's been working on 2 versions of her speech tonight. She will be on stage behind me. She is the only one who will speak on that stage, we're told. As you mentioned, there is a glass ceiling here, also a steel structure. The symbolism of why they chose this as the backdrop for her speech tonight is lost on no one. It is clear that they feel that even getting this far, they have broken a certain glass ceiling. And again, they are waiting, but feeling confident from what they're seeing so far, especially in places like Florida. They feel that the Latino vote in certain states, including North Carolina, where they believe that the Latino vote is up 86%, that will really help them.
Dana?
So Jennifer, thank you for all of the reporting you've done, and I know that you've been away from your children and you're ready to get back to them, so this will be great to get this behind you. I think you've done an amazing job, and I wonder about what you hear internally from the campaign about the toll that the WikiLeaks has taken on them, whether professionally or even interpersonally, because a lot of dirty laundry was aired. Not that they would have wanted it to be, but I wonder how much that's weighing on them tonight.
Well, it's really interesting, Dana. I think what we hear most from the campaign, it's not just their public statements, but they genuinely feel that there was an attempt by Russia to interfere with the election. They heard that from intelligence sources and agencies who have been watching it very carefully, and they feel that the WikiLeaks did do a lot of damage to the campaign. But what I will say about the campaign and what we noticed being on the plane with them is that this was a very disciplined campaign operation. There were not a lot of leaks out of this campaign. We saw that starting back when the vice presidential pick was being discussed. There were no leaks at that time. There have not been any leaks of people griping or complaining, and I think that is a tribute to those who were running the communications shop. Back to you.
Kimberly?
Hi, Jennifer. Again, congratulations on a job well done. You make us proud here and women proud at Fox, so thank you for that. Talk to me a little bit about the last-minute kind of ground game for Clinton, sort of going a little bit off of their planned schedule and itinerary in terms of campaign stops here at the end. It seems that they were a little thrown off by Trump and some of the reports that he was doing better in states that they thought that they had locked up.
In fact, Kimberly, it's a great question because obviously all eyes on Michigan in these last hours. And that was a surprise because that is a typically blue state. But I was speaking to Lanny Davis, a longtime Clinton friend, on the train into New York today. And he told me that, in fact, Michigan had been in a free fall in the last couple of weeks. And that is why they saw, in fact, a certain Comey effect among unionized blue-collar workers out in Michigan that typically had voted Democratic, and they were shifting to Donald Trump. And that is why you saw Hillary Clinton out there. That's why you saw the president make stops out there in the last moments of this election. They think they're going to pull it out in Michigan. In fact, they in the end.
All right, thank you.
Gregory?
Well, thanks to the New York Post, we found out where Anthony Weiner was. He's in an addiction rehab. He was riding a horse. The horse seemed fine but nervous. My question is, where is Huma? And if Hillary pulls this off, will Huma be on stage with her, or will she be under the stage?
Well, it's very interesting that you should mention Huma. Last night was the first time that we saw her on board Hillary Clinton's plane as she flew from Philadelphia down to North Carolina for that last midnight rally. That was notable because, again, it's the first time that she had traveled with Clinton since the Comey revelations 2 weeks ago, and then in the wake of Comey reversing course with that letter to Capitol Hill. I think she's feeling that she can appear with Clinton, but we also saw that video of her after the fundraiser where she was in Washington and she was caught on camera saying that she felt very sad. So I think Huma has certainly taken a toll in this, but she was back at Hillary Clinton's side last night.
Eric Boland.
Jen, you mentioned Comey a couple of times. This has been weighing on me for a couple of days now. Specifically, you travel with the campaign. You talk to a lot of the senior advisors. You probably talk to the candidate as well. What is the feeling about James Comey? How does she feel about James Comey? And then a follow-up to that is, if she is president, does James Comey still have a job?
Well, she certainly, and her campaign is certainly too disciplined to tell us what they really think about FBI Director James Comey. However, in one of the radio interviews that she did lately, she was asked that very question, whether if she were elected, whether she would fire the FBI Director. And she certainly said she would not talk about personnel issues. They were very disappointed, I will tell you that. There was a feeling that they did take a hit. They had some momentum and they had to shift their message in the end. They wanted to end on a more uplifting message, and they felt that in those final days after Comey's decision that they really had to slug it out, and that was disappointing to her in her closing arguments.
Hey, Jen, you know, I heard this morning that Mrs. Clinton was on the radio talking about what to call Mr. Clinton if she wins. What was the funniest answer?
Well, I think the funniest answer was first laddie, but it will have to see. I think more likely it would be first gentleman if it were actually to be the case.
Thanks, Jennifer. Up next, our advice through Dr. Gutfeld for both winner and loser of tonight's election. We'll be back in a moment.
So either Trump wins, Hillary loses, or Trump loses, Hillary wins. Here's advice for both of them for each occasion. So Trump, if you win, after thanking your family, supporters, and assorted water boys, promise the critics that President Donald is not campaign Donald, that you'll serve all Americans, not just fans, but also critics. That means admitting to some mistakes, then seeking to heal. And please, don't audit me. Now that means you, Hillary, you lost. You had a good run. Now go become a billionaire like you always wanted. Start a bed and breakfast with Uma. You could serve wieners. But if you win, Hillary, don't gloat. WikiLeaks still looms. Your best bet, find the middle of the road and prove those wrong who called you Castro in culottes. Now, Donald, if you lose, concede politely, and when you launch Trump TV, please give Alex Jones the slot he earned right after Scott Baio. Now, to Trump's media pals, if he loses, I know you'll blame this on people who didn't back him, but you made that bed and kicked everyone but Trump out. You own it. Last, for Democrats, figure out how to talk to white men. Republicans, figure out how to talk to everyone else. And Gary Johnson, buy a globe. Finally, America, congrats. We did something together. We voted. That's teamwork. Some countries don't get this far. So no matter who wins, pat yourself on the back. This ain't Russia yet. All right. Straight down here, advice for a winning Trump and a losing Trump.
Well, I know that the candidates are going to be depleted in terms of their energy reserves because both of them have been tireless, and Donald Trump, I think the amount of the rallies that he's done, amazing. But I don't think I would take too much time to rest. I think that the healing process for the country, the unification, should take place really between Thanksgiving and Christmas in the lead up before the inauguration. I wouldn't wait until your first 100 days, whoever wins.
All right, Eric, advice for a winning Hillary and a losing Hillary.
Boy, winning Hillary, I think you nailed it because there's so much stuff still looming between WikiLeaks and whether or not there's investigations into the Clinton Foundation. Losing Hillary, man, I can't imagine how either one of these losing parties, one right there, one over there, what they would be like. I mean, these are two massive egos, two massive personalities. I don't know, maybe take a few days off and just don't be seen anywhere for a few days.
Stay off Twitter.
Walk on the beach with Bill. Well, maybe not a beach.
Yes.
No, please.
Walk on two separate beaches.
Don't punish us.
It's true. Juan, what would Hillary do if this is it? Would she just retire, go somewhere? I don't know.
I think there's no chance she'd run again. So, but my thought, Greg, to respond to your question, I think is heartfelt, and that has to do with the fact that I don't think this is about either of them. I think, we just have to speak to America and the need for healing in a very significant way right now. I think we are divided in terms of education level in this campaign. We're divided in terms of rural and urban. We're divided in terms of race in this election. Women and men are divided. I just think, wow. So I think whoever wins or loses has got to, get above the clouds for a second and start to talk about love of America.
Kimberly?
Yeah, I think that no matter who wins and no matter who loses, I think they know that the country needs to come together and show that spirit and love of country and patriotism to try and do a better job, quite frankly, than Barack Obama did and his administration, the Justice Department, about bringing people together. And some of the riots and things that we've seen across the country are very disturbing, should bother anybody. I agree with Dana, where she said they shouldn't take a vacation time off. I think if Trump wins, that he should, in fact, go on a thank you tour across the country, go to all the states, the ones that voted for him, the ones that didn't support him, thank people for their patriotism and let them know what kind of president he is going to be. And same for Hillary Clinton. Maybe she's not going to hit all 50, but nevertheless, to be a unifier, and there's some suggestion that she's already talked about that she knows that job is one that needs to happen, and also reach out to Congress. You will need to show and lead by example that you know how to work with people across party lines, and I wouldn't waste a moment to be able to do that.
All right. Well done. Ahead. Final thoughts, final predictions, our final word before the polls close. Next.
All right, only a couple of minutes left before election night coverage begins here on Fox. Some final thoughts on our final moments. We'll bring it around. Starting with Greg.
It's a lot like, imagine Christmas Eve and there are two kids and one of the kids is going to get a lump of coal and the other one's getting a shiny bicycle. That's America right now. Half is going to get a shiny bicycle, the other half is going to get coal.
Don't be down on coal.
I love coal. Clean coal.
Clean coal. Dana?
Well, I'm looking forward to tonight. Ever since I was a kid, I remember my first political memory really is Ronald Reagan winning and the inauguration. I remember that day, and I loved watching the news with my mom and dad and my little sister. And so tonight, to get a chance to be a part of Fox News election coverage, I'm really looking forward to it.
It's going to be great. It's going to be massive. For me, get out there and vote. There's still time. I mean, most of the country still has polls open. All the polls are still open. Let me do this. My son, Eric Chase, here he is with a bunch of his friends at the University of Colorado Boulder, Sigma Pi fraternity brothers. There he is there. See that vote sign? He's over there on the left with the ballot. And look at that one right there. They got out and vote, and if they can do it, you can do it. Get out. There's still time. And those are millennials there, right there. Juan.
Well, you know, I'm just so pleased with Election Day in America because I was afraid that we would have so many challenges at the polls in terms of voter intimidation, questions from the courts having to get involved. Then, of course, there was the threat of Russia possibly hacking some of the computers used for voting. We haven't heard anything like that. We haven't heard about voter intimidation, hacking. Remember, we had that rolling Twitter outage a few weeks ago. People were worried about that, worried about false statements coming across on email and Twitter. Haven't seen. So far, we've had a successful election day in America, and after
Way to
this,
jinx it.
Don't jinxing. But after this election, you just want to hold your head and say, please. But no, it's worked out. We worked out pretty good. Congratulations, America.
Final thoughts, KG.
Yeah, and just a special thank you to the men and women in the military that serve faithfully and fearlessly in this country and across the world to protect our freedoms and our liberty and our ability to cast our vote in this country. So I hope everyone feels that they had their voice heard tonight. Get out there still and vote, like Eric Bolling said, and God bless America.
Did I say Semper Fi? It was Sigma Pi.
You said Sigma Pi.
I said Sigma Pi. Okay.
Sigma Pi or Sigma Phi.
Dana, we've been through so much. This show has been through so much.
Last night when we were doing the podcast TV show, the second to last one, there's one left, and then no more Perino and Starwald on TV, but we'll keep the podcast going. We were writing the script, and we said, how long has this campaign been going on? So, Chris, I knew how to Google when Ted Cruz announced. He knew how to do the math, and we figured out it was 596 days.
596,
I mean, imagine if that were dog years.
Why do you always have to bring it back to dogs?
Because we all should talk about dogs.
I wanted to keep going. I've lost 10 pounds.
Don't worry.
It's like this election is causing me not to eat.
But don't worry, it's going to keep going. I think that's part of the problem is the election cycle these days never ends.
That's true.
It doesn't stop.
Well, what is tomorrow going to be like? Let's say we do get a president, the definitive president tonight. What are we going to do?
Talk about? Can we do a fastest 7 of cat videos?
Yeah.
Oh, no, you'll be surprised how much there is to talk about.
There's a lot still.
I'll be nursing a hangover. That is for sure. And so will America. America will have one giant unifying hangover.
You mentioned in your monologue, is there a Trump TV or is there not? Boy, that a lot of people are waiting to figure out what that's going to look. If there is, what it's going to look like.
He has the audience.
Yep.
Jump in.
Wait, are we breaking some news here?
Yeah, I guess we'll do it. Okay.
I don't know.
They want us to keep going, but I think that's all we have time for.
We haven't pulled the plug yet.
All right, we're going to see you back here tomorrow when we hopefully have a winner. Fox News election night coverage starts right now.